I don't remember the exact day, I just know it was cold. That kind of cold that makes your bones feel hollow. I was sitting behind an old diner, wrapped in a jacket I stole from a laundromat, trying to convince myself that my fingers weren't going numb. The garbage bins reeked, but the alley blocked the wind, and that made it better than most places. I'd been staying there for maybe a week, digging through whatever the restaurant threw out after closing. Some nights, I'd get lucky and find a whole burger someone didn't finish. Other nights, I'd scrape mold off stale bread and tell myself it was fine. That night was supposed to be like any other. Then the SUVs showed up. I heard them first. The low hum of a big engine rolling up slow like a predator that already knows it's caught you. 2 black vehicles, the kind with tinted windows so dark you couldn't even see the reflection of the streetlights. They didn't have plates. I knew better than to move. Running gets you chased. Looking scared makes you pray. So I just sat there, arms wrapped around my knees, watching from the corner of my eye as the doors opened and 3 men stepped out. Government. You could tell by the way they moved. Not cops. Cops try to look casual when they're about to grab you. These guys didn't bother. One of them crouched in front of me. He was in his 40s, built like someone who had been in the military once, but hadn't seen combat in years. His suit was too clean. His hair was buzzed short, but his face looked detached. Like I wasn't a person. Just an asset to be acquired. Stand up. I didn't move. Come on, kid. You've been on the streets for what, 2 years? You want to keep digging through dumpsters the rest of your life? I stared at him. He sighed like this was an inconvenience. You have 2 options. You can stay here, keep starving, maybe end up stabbed over a blanket one day. Or, he tilted his head, you come with us, and you never have to worry about that again. Still, I didn't move. Because when someone offers you something too good to be true, it's a lie. The other guy spoke up, the one still standing by the SUV. His voice was different, sharper, more sure. We know who you are. I almost laughed. I wasn't anybody. But he kept going. No birth certificate, no school records, no medical history past the age of 5. No one's looking for you. That stopped me cold. Because he was right. You don't exist, kid. And that makes you perfect. The man in front of me stood up. Last chance. You get in the car or you stay here. And I promise you, if you stay here, you won't last another year. Maybe I should have fought. Maybe I should have run. But I didn't. I got in the car. They drove for hours. No one spoke. I stared at my own reflection in the window, trying to pretend like I wasn't afraid. But I was. They took me to a facility somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. No signs, no markings. Just a huge gray building with floodlights bright enough to erase the stars. Inside, they led me down hallways that smelled like metal and bleach. No windows. Every door had a keypad lock. They put me in a room with a cot and a metal chair bolted to the floor. You're staying here for now, the buzzcut guy said. There's food in the hall, showers are down the corridor, clothes are in the locker by the door. He turned to leave, then stopped. Welcome to your new life. The door locked behind him. I waited 10 minutes before standing. The room wasn't big. Concrete walls, no camera I could see, but that didn't mean there wasn't one. The only things inside were the cot, the chair, and a locker. I opened the locker. Inside was a pile of folded clothes, plain gray sweatpants, a t-shirt, socks, and a black zip-up jacket. The fabric was stiff like it hadn't been worn in years. I put it on, and that's when I felt it. Something crumpled in the pocket. I pulled it out. A small folded note, yellowed, worn like it had been carried for a long time. I unfolded it. The handwriting looked familiar. It looked like mine. Please do not join them. I stared at it in disbelief. This had to be a mistake. Maybe the jacket used to belong to someone else. Maybe some other recruit wrote this. That had to be it. I crumpled it in my fist and tossed it in the corner. I was just being paranoid. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything went wrong. Training becoming a ghost. The first thing they took from me was my name. Not that I had much of one to begin with. No ID, no records, nothing tying me to anything. But still, it's one thing to not have a name, and another thing to have it ripped away. When I woke up the next morning, there was a metal plate bolted to the wall above my cot. A number. 073. That was it. That was me. The breaking process. They didn't ease us into it. There was no adjustment period, no getting comfortable. They threw us straight into hell. We weren't the only ones. There were others, kids, teenagers, some older but never past their 20s. All of us were nobodies. No pasts, no families, no trails leading back to anyone who would ask where we went. The first test was food. The guards brought in trays, set them on the floor, and walked away. No instructions. It took 1 second for someone to move. The kid was maybe 16, skinny, quick. He dove forward, grabbed a tray, and a second later he was on the floor, choking on his own teeth. The guy who hit him didn't hesitate. He took the tray, sat down, and ate. I didn't move. Because this wasn't a test of hunger. This was a test of who was willing to kill for it. I went 3 days without eating. By the 4th, I understood. You don't wait. You strike first. That was lesson 1. The next few weeks, they stripped us down, layer by layer. Sleep deprivation. Kept us awake for days, played static through speakers so loud it made our bones rattle. Pain tolerance. Made us hold our hands in ice water until nerves started dying. Put knives in front of us and said, choose your leg or your hand. Psychological breakdown. Locked us in rooms with no light, no sound, nothing but the sound of our own breathing. Then the whispers started. Voices we knew weren't real, but we still heard them. It wasn't training. It was breaking. The rebuilding process. They didn't just want soldier. They wanted ghosts. Once we were broken, they built us back up. Weapons training. Not just guns, knives, garrots, poisons, even our bare hands. If you can breathe, you can kill. Psychology. The best way to kill a man is to make him kill himself. We learned how to manipulate, how to read weaknesses. Tactical movement. You are never seen. If someone spots you, you've already failed. Misdirection. Sometimes the best kill is the one no one knows happened. I was faster than the others. Maybe because I'd already been living like this. Surviving on scraps. Staying in the shadows. By the time I turned 18, I wasn't a person anymore. I was a weapon. And I was good at it. First missions. They started us small. At first, it was eliminating loose ends. People who talked too much. Former agents who tried to run. The kind of people who needed to disappear. They handed me a gun and a name. That was it. You fail, you die. Simple. I never failed. Then the jobs got bigger. Foreign politicians. CEOs of corporations that weren't playing along. By 20, I was handling covert operations in other countries. No records, no accountability, just a body count that didn't exist. By 22, I was pulled into the real work. The projects that weren't supposed to exist. The first time I heard about time travel. It wasn't some big revelation. There was no dramatic speech. No secret underground lab with a glowing portal. It was just a mission briefing. We sat in a steel-walled room staring at a single page of classified text. Time travel is real. You will not ask how. You will not ask why. That was it. The rules were simple. You can go back, but you cannot return. You do not interact with yourself. If you erase something, you ensure the desired outcome remains. They told us we'd be shaping history. At first I thought they meant politically. Wars, governments. Maybe silencing people before they could change the world. Then I got my first time travel assignment. Lincoln, JFK, and the lies I helped cement. I wasn't the trigger man. Not for those ones. But I was the guarantee. John Wilkes Booth wasn't supposed to succeed. There were too many chances for failure. The crowd could have stopped him. His nerves could have gotten in the way. The bullet could have gone wide. I ensured that none of that happened. I was the shadow, the one who moved behind the stage, the one who made sure Booth got to that theater, that no one questioned his way inside, that Lincoln's guards didn't react in time. When he pulled the trigger, I was already gone. The same thing happened with JFK. Oswald wasn't the only shooter. There were fail-safes in place. If the bullet didn't land, we had another one lined up. I started noticing patterns. Because when you step outside of time, you start seeing it differently. The first signs. Something was wrong. It started small. Déjà vu. Little things. A conversation I swore I had already heard. A mission briefing that felt identical to one I had done months before. And then it got worse. I'd walk into a room and people recognized me, but I didn't know them. One night I caught my own reflection looking back at me in a way that wasn't mine, like someone else was wearing my face. I tried to ignore it. I tried to tell myself I was just paranoid. But then I got my next mission, and I was sent to kill myself. They didn't tell me that, of course. The mission brief was like any other. Neutralize a rogue agent before they could compromise Project Kronos, the official name for time manipulation, though we never called it that. I was given an extraction window, location coordinates, and an intel package on the target. It was standard procedure. Until I saw the photo. It was me. I didn't react. You don't react. That's how you fail. I took the folder, nodded, and left the briefing room without a word. Inside, I was screaming. I spent years training to erase emotion, to act without hesitation, to be a ghost. But when you look at a black and white surveillance photo of a man you've never met, and he has your exact face, you feel something. I kept my hands steady as I flipped through the documents. The mission details were cold and clinical. Target, redacted. Threat level high. Last known location, abandoned facility, Zone 7. Objective, eliminate with extreme prejudice. There was no name, no history, just a timestamp and a face. My face. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't ask questions. I did what I was trained to do. I prepped, studied the location, checked my gear, ran through every possible encounter scenario. This was an elimination job, not capture, meaning the agency expected resistance. That meant the target was armed, trained, and had no intention of coming quietly. That meant I had to be faster. The coordinates led to an abandoned research station in the middle of nowhere. No backup, no tech support, just me and the target. Standard kill mission. Except it wasn't. I found him in the remains of an old server room, hunched over a cracked computer monitor. He wasn't armed. He didn't even flinch when I stepped inside, gun raised. He just sighed, like he had been expecting me. And then he turned around. I was looking at myself. Not a twin, not a look-alike. Me. Same face, same eyes, same scars, right down to the tiny faded cut on my jaw from when I was 12. I froze. For the first time in my life, I hesitated. And that hesitation saved my life. "You're early." My voice, my mouth, but not my words. The man in front of me but older, worn, tired in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep, leaned back against the desk, rubbing his temples. "You have no idea what you are, do you?" I aimed my gun at his head. "You need to come with me." He smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "They already won," he said quietly. "You just haven't realized it yet." I didn't lower my gun. "What the hell is going on?" He exhaled, looking at me like someone staring at their own gravestone. "You're in a loop," he said. "They've been using us. You think this is your first time? It's not." I felt my heartbeat in my teeth. He stepped closer, and for some reason, I didn't shoot. "You have to go back," he whispered. "Change the note. Make sure you don't join." The words hit me like ice water. The note. But before he could answer, there was a sound like glass shattering, and suddenly his chest erupted in red. A bullet slammed into him from the side. My ears rang. My brain stalled. Sniper. His body hit the floor. I turned, gun raised. Too late. A second shot hit him in the head, and then his body vanished. No blood, no corpse. Just gone. Like he had never been there. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember the drive back, the debriefing, the conversation with my handlers. I just remember staring at the floor of my room that night, heart hammering so fast, I thought I was dying. They erased him. Not just killed him. Erased him. And if that was really me, then that meant I was next. I lay awake for hours playing the conversation over in my head. "Go back. Change the note. Make sure you don't join." The note. The goddamn note. I had thrown it away without thinking. I had ignored a warning from myself. I had made this happen. There was only one way to fix this. I had to go back. I had to make sure my younger self never got into that car. But there was a problem. You can go back, but you can't return. Going back meant staying there forever. I'd be stuck in the past, forced to live out the years all over again. But if I didn't, then nothing would change. And next time, they'd make sure I didn't get a second warning. So I made my decision. I stole a key card from one of the guards, waited until 3 o'clock, when security rotation was at its weakest, moved through the corridors like I was still a ghost, like I still belonged. I entered the restricted wing of the facility, and I stepped into the time chamber. The last thing I saw before I activated the machine was my own reflection in the glass, staring back at me, looking afraid, looking like someone who already knew this wasn't going to work. And then everything disappeared. Have you ever died before? I have. It wasn't like how they describe it in books. No tunnel of light, no sudden gasp of realization, no peaceful slipping away. It felt like being ripped apart and put back together wrong. Like every nerve in my body was on fire, but my brain couldn't process pain fast enough to keep up. I didn't black out. I wish I had. Instead, I stayed awake through all of it. And then suddenly, I wasn't in the machine anymore. I was standing in the alley behind the diner, the same one I had lived in 15 years ago. The air smelled the same: wet asphalt, rotting trash, cigarette smoke from the bar across the street. It was raining. I remembered this rain, because this was the night they came for me. This was my last night before I disappeared from the world. This was my last chance to fix it. Leaving the note, again, I couldn't talk to him. That was the rule. No direct contact with your past self. If I did, it could break things in ways I wouldn't be able to fix. So instead, I did the only thing I could. I planted the note. I moved fast, knowing how little time I had. I snuck into the shelter where my younger self stored his clothes, into the back where I used to keep my things. I stuffed the paper deep into the pocket of the jacket I had once stolen. I had changed the message. This time, instead of saying, "Please do not join them," I wrote, "Run, they will find you." Then I left, and I waited. I didn't go far. I couldn't. I had to see if it worked. So I waited in the shadows as the black SUVs pulled up, as the agents stepped out, as my younger self hesitated but ultimately got into the car. Just like before, nothing changed. I had failed. I felt something crack inside me, a deep, hollow panic that I hadn't felt in years. I had one chance to fix this, and I blew it. I started to move, to do something, anything. Then the pain hit, a searing, burning sensation across my shoulder. I looked down and saw the first scar forming on my skin. It wasn't a cut. It wasn't a wound. It was a word. Found. The skin on my forearm carved itself open, bleeding as the letters burned into place. Like a message from something watching me. I stumbled back, gripping my arm, trying to force my brain to process what was happening, and then I saw them. Standing in the alley, watching me. The agency. They knew I had come back, and they had been waiting. I ran. I don't remember how far I made it. All I remember is the sting of a needle in my neck. Then the world tipped sideways and everything went black. I came to in a concrete cell. Cold, dark. My arms strapped to a chair. A single light flickered above me, buzzing like an insect about to die. Footsteps. Then a voice I recognized. "You're a hard man to catch. 073. Buzzcut. The man who had recruited me all those years ago, he hadn't aged a day. I stayed silent. He sighed. "You really thought we wouldn't notice? You really thought you could just go back and change things?" I didn't respond because I already knew what was coming. He nodded to someone behind me. I heard the whir of something metal, then pain. Blinding. A knife cutting into my younger self. And across the room, in the dark reflection of the glass, I saw my own body react. A finger. Gone. The first countdown had begun. The truth about the loop. "You don't get it, do you?" Buzzcut's voice was calm, cold. "You were never supposed to succeed. That's not how this works." I gritted my teeth. My vision swam. "You thought you were the first one to try this? You weren't. And you won't be the last." I forced myself to breathe. "Then why keep me alive?" He smiled. "Because we need you to suffer. We need you to understand." He motioned to the reflection. To my body. "Every time you fight back, we take something from you. Every time you run, we cut deeper. You can't escape this 073. We own you. We always have." He leaned in. "You are not real. You are a construct. A byproduct of our design." The scars on my arm twisted into new words. "Give up, or there will be nothing left." The countdown burned into my skin. 10. A warning. A promise. The second scar burned itself in. 9. Another finger gone. I screamed, because I wasn't losing these pieces in real time. They were cutting my younger self, and every piece they took from him disappeared from me. I wasn't dead yet, and that meant I still had one last chance. The agency wasn't keeping me here to kill me. They were keeping me here to break me. And that meant I had time. I stole a glance at the mirrored glass. Behind the reflection, I knew there were cameras, computers, a control panel. The facility was still connected to the time network, which meant I still had one way to change things. Not by running, not by warning, but by forcing my younger self to fight back. I gritted my teeth, forcing my focus past the pain. I was out of time, but I wasn't out of options. Pain has a way of turning seconds into eternities. I stopped counting the hours. I stopped trying to make sense of time at all because every time I thought I had a grip on reality, the numbers burned deeper into my skin. 8. Another knuckle gone. 7. The joints in my hand twisting, vanishing, as if they had never been there at all. I had felt pain before. I had been shot, stabbed, beaten half to death in places that didn't officially exist. But this was something else. Because it wasn't happening to me. It was happening to him. The countdown stalled at 3. And I knew why. I was still alive. Barely. My body was broken, my hands gone, my mind slipping into the places between time itself. But they had stopped the countdown. And that meant they were waiting. Buzzcut stepped into the room, leaving the door wide open. He leaned into my face. "You get it now, don't you?" he said softly. "You're not escaping this. You never have." I lifted my head, breath ragged, and I smiled. Because he was wrong. I wasn't out of moves yet. Buzzcut thought I was broken. So when I let my head tilt backward and slammed it into his face, he was caught off guard. If I can breathe, I can kill. I ran out the door and threw my body onto the control panel with the little strength I had left. The console sparked. Alarms blared. The mirrored screen in front of me flickered, then changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just reflecting my broken body. It was showing a live feed. A grainy, black and white image of a transport vehicle. And in the back seat, me. Another younger version of me before being captured and tortured. He wasn't in the black site. Not yet. He was in transport. Strapped into the back of a black SUV, wrists zip-tied, head tilted down as if unconscious. But I saw the way his fingers twitched against his leg. He was awake. They thought he was too weak to fight back. They were wrong. I had to convince him this was all real. I only had seconds. The guards were trying to pull me back. Buzzcut was shouting, but the sound was distant, like it was coming from the other side of a wall. I focused on the screen. I saw my younger self's eyes flutter open. I had no way to talk to him directly. The transport wasn't wired for two-way comms. But I didn't need words. I changed the camera feed. And suddenly, my younger self was staring at something impossible. The screen inside the transport vehicle glitched. The guards driving the SUV didn't notice. But my younger self did. Because suddenly, the screen wasn't showing a map. It was showing the inside of the black site. And what he saw made his breath hitch in terror. He saw himself, strapped down, bleeding. He saw my missing hands, my mutilated arms. He saw what was going to happen to him. If he did nothing, this would be him. He would end up exactly where I was. And that was when I knew I had him. I had seconds left. The guards were pulling me back. The screen was glitching. But I forced out the last message. Not a whisper, not a plea, a command. Break free. Kill them all. Burn the black site down. His head snapped up. I saw his expression shift. Not in fear. Not in confusion. In understanding. And then, before the screen cut out, I saw him move. He snapped his wrists, twisting the zip ties until they snapped. He launched himself at the agent sitting next to him. He was fighting back, and I knew in that instant had won. The last thing I saw before everything broke apart was Buzzcut's expression. Not rage, not satisfaction. Fear. Then I was gone. I opened my eyes. Everything was quiet. I sat up slowly, blinking against the darkness. Where the hell was I? The first thing I noticed was silence. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, there were no alarms, no voices, no machinery tracking my every move. I pushed myself up, fast this time, expecting pain, expecting missing limbs. But my hands were there, whole. I stared at them for a long second, flexing my fingers, feeling my skin. No scars, no amputations. Like it had never happened. But that wasn't possible. Unless it really did work. Unless my younger self actually won. I stood slowly, scanning my surroundings. The room was dark. Not like the sterile, artificial darkness of the black site. Not like the windowless concrete cells I had spent years in. This was natural darkness. The kind you only get in places that have been abandoned for a long time. The air was stale. The concrete walls were covered in dust. The only thing in the room was a single flickering screen. The same one I had seen before the world collapsed around me. I stepped closer. The screen was showing a paused video feed. I hesitated before pressing play. But deep down, I already knew what I was about to see. The footage clicked on. The camera feed was grainy, flickering with static. And on the screen, I saw my younger self, standing in a burning hallway. Bodies littered the ground around him. Dead agents, black site personnel. The same men who had once trained us, controlled us, turned us into ghosts. Now they were the ghosts. My younger self wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at something past it. And then he spoke. His voice was calm, controlled. Like someone who had just accepted something unavoidable. If you're seeing this, then you made it out. That means I won. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. But that also means you already know what has to happen next. I felt my pulse slow. A sinking weight settled in my chest. Because I did know. I had always known. He exhaled, stepping closer to the camera, his expression unreadable. I burned it all down. Just like you told me to. I left no survivors. But you and I both know that isn't enough. I clenched my jaw. He stared at me, through the screen, across time itself. You know what the real problem is, don't you? A long silence. And then, it's us. Something cold settled in my stomach. Because he was right. The agency was gone. The black site was destroyed. The people who had controlled me for my entire life were nothing more than smoldering corpses in a burning facility. But the cycle wasn't broken yet. Because I was still here. And as long as I was here, as long as I existed, they could always rebuild. The system didn't come from a facility. It came from us. From the knowledge we had, the skills we had. From what we had been turned into. And as long as I was alive, they could always find me again. Restart everything. And then the note would appear. The loop would begin again. I felt my breath slow. And on the screen, my younger self nodded. Like he already knew what I had just realized. You know what to do. I stared at the flickering screen for a long, long time. My young self wasn't saying anything anymore. Because there was nothing left to say. There was only one way to break the loop for good. and we both knew it. I turned from the screen, scanning the room. There had to be a way out of here. There had to be something. Then I saw it, a door. I hadn't noticed it at first. It blended into the concrete wall so perfectly that I had almost overlooked it. But it was there, waiting, a way forward, or an exit, a final choice. The loop wasn't just one moment in time. It was something deeper than that, something we had built ourselves. And if I stepped through that door, if I let myself be found again, it would start over. But if I stayed here, if I let this place, this room, this moment swallow me whole, it would end. For good. I took a slow breath. Then I reached for the door handle. And I made my choice. As I turned the handle, the screen behind me glitched. One last message appeared. I didn't turn around to read it, because I already knew what it said. I stepped through the door, and the world went dark.